Hi there, I'm Holly McDonald with the OC Pod, where we talk about all things concerning the lifestyle, businesses, and activities that make our area such a great place to live. Today we are focusing on Costa Mesa, and I have longtime resident Kristen Karlin here to join us, and she is going to share some of her insights about an awesome community here in Costa Mesa called Halecrest. Kristen has been a teacher, a leader, so much involved in the community. And today she's going to share so many of her insights with us so you can find out a little bit more about how this place functions. So, Kristen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. I think it would be great if we could kick it off with just talking a little bit about your background and what brought you to Costa Mesa, because you're originally local, but not this local. So talk a little bit about that.
So I ended up in Costa Mesa by accident. If we backtrack a little bit, my parents are both from upstate New York, like closer to Canada than New York City. So whenever as a kid I would say we were going to New York to visit family, I had to clarify upstate New York. And they both met in a skydiving club. They each had more than 800 jumps. They both became pilots. And then soon after graduating, they moved to Southern California. My mom still lives in the home I grew up in. They purchased their home in Fountain Valley shortly before I was born. And so it's been neat seeing my kids, go back to swim at grandma's. They're at her house often, and it's just been awesome. So fast forward, I started pursuing aviation while in high school, ended up working at the flight school to offset that very expensive hobby. And that's where I met my husband, who had recently graduated UC Irvine. And then that's where I went. So we ended up purchasing our first condo and then our first small home in Irvine because it checked all the boxes. It's diverse, phenomenal schools, clean, new. You get the nice kitchen, the open concept. So we were thinking we had it all. And then my daughter got to be kindergarten age. And by that time I had worked at Killybrooke Elementary for about 10 years. And we were just missing something so important. And it was that sense of community. And I wanted part of that upbringing that I had with the bikes thrown in the front yard and just kids everywhere and just that latchkey childhood. It's so funny because I'll show random photos. My kids will have, 6 scooters tied together with some type of, bungee cord that they find in the garage, and I'll send a photo to my friends, and they'll be like, "You have the most Norman Rockwell neighborhood ever." And it's not because the houses are all perfection or anything it's just that sense of community that is just so hard to find elsewhere. So what I jumped over a part, which is I started teaching at Killybrooke Elementary in 2005, and I just looked at my husband after we had gone as far south as Aliso Viejo, Lake Forest, and as far north as northern Huntington Harbor. And we just weren't finding anything that clicked with us, as familiar as I was with Huntington Beach and Fountain Valley even. And it was just the answer was right in front of us, which is I was so in love with Killybrooke Elementary by that time. They have very low turnover with teachers. Now that we have some retirements, but it's one of those places that instantly feels like home. So the staff and the teachers stay for a long time. And I had gotten to know so many of my teacher friends who lived in other areas, and I realized no matter where you send your kids, you're going to have your ups and downs. You're going to have that year where your child has a teacher that goes on maternity leave or is out sick, and you can't predict for all of those, but just knowing I could send my kid to a school where I wouldn't have to do a teacher request and, try to guide them specifically was just like, oh. So we moved to Costa Mesa from Irvine, and we were originally in Mesa Verde, and I didn't want to live where I worked. I didn't want to be at the neighborhood pool and see my students. And then my dream home, a former home of one of my students' families, came on the market, and 3 days later we were in a bidding war for a smaller house because I so badly wanted that neighborhood.
Oh my gosh, okay, so you initially did not want to be in the neighborhood. You're like, I need a little bit of distance, and then you're like, actually. So was the house your dream house, and did you already know it beforehand, or did it? Okay.
So maybe 5 years into teaching, I had this wonderful family, and they would host things at their house, maybe like PTA board meetings or holiday craft fairs that would include kids and everything else. And so I'd been in that house a number of times, and they weren't the current owners. They had already moved to be closer with their family in Dana Point. But my friend 2 doors down had said, "Kelly's house is for sale." Oh. And so I raced over, and some tears and convincing my husband, and 3 days later we were in a bidding war. So
yeah, well, it's a special neighborhood, and a lot of times when the homes do come on the market there, they tend to get a lot of attention.
It moves fast.
Now, how did you not know much about Costa Mesa? I mean, I'm always curious about this because you lived in the area for a while. So was it just kind of like the spot in between that you just didn't have much to do with at that time?
So I grew up in Fountain Valley. I ended up going to Huntington High School, so I was really familiar with that area and really involved. And I don't know if it's the geography, but it's like that riverbed.
Yeah.
Like there's kind of a hill and a riverbed that separates Huntington and Fountain Valley from, you have to get on the freeway or go all the way down to Adams. So it just wasn't an area we went to very often. You know, back in the day they had that ice skating rink and the bowling alley where Vaughn's is now. And I remember going to that, but that went away in the 90s, you know. So it was just this gem, and we ended up, again, by accident, getting more and more involved in that neighborhood. So when I was working full time, you know, we always have in the back of our mind, like, what if there's an earthquake or something like that? And my husband's a pilot, so he could be in Wichita for 2 weeks. I could be working full time, and where do I want my kids? I want them right there. Yeah. So we found an in-home daycare that helped raise 3 of our kids. And then from daycare, they went to the local preschool, which is Harbor Trinity Church and Preschool. Yeah. And then so it was just kind of this natural flow, like, oh, well, if we just relocate to Costa Mesa, our kids are already invested and involved in all of these nurturing relationships, that we can just continue that. And so that's how it kind of snuck up on us. Yeah. So
well, and one of the things that I've always said is so special about Halecrest, and of course you can attest to this, is just that it's so kind of self-contained. You don't have to really, almost everybody that goes to the school could walk there if they wanted to. It is safe enough where you could leave your bikes out on the front lawn and all of that. Yeah. Do you feel like a lot of the families that end up living there or migrating there are looking for that same sort of lifestyle?
I think they are, and I think people, because of the size of the houses, most of them aren't very large unless they've been added on. Yeah. So I think some people kind of view it as not a starter home, but like it'll work for now. They don't really move. No, you know, they kind of fall in love and they stay. It's just so convenient, and it's interesting because we're right on Harbor, which isn't the most attractive street. And we've got some hotels nearby, but for some reason, the way the neighborhood's built, it just seems to be safe. Yeah. My youngest he's our son. We have 2 girls and then our son, and he never puts his stuff away. So his Nerf guns, his bikes, and my husband all the time is like, if you don't put your bike away, someone's going to take it. No one ever takes it. So that's how safe our neighborhood is. Yeah. We're like, dude, your bike's on the front lawn. And so we've never had an issue with that. And so we're kind of trying to teach him a lesson. It's an older bike and he needs a bigger one, and it just isn't happening. So we've been very fortunate with that.
One day you're just going to have one of your family members
swipe it and be like, we told you, now save up.
Well, and one of the things that I think is so great about your family is that you've definitely had a lot of them come to the neighborhood too. What were they drawn to it as well? Was it kind of a combination of, oh, well, we want to be close to family? How did that all work out? So my family's close. They're still in Fountain Valley, Huntington Beach area, but his family, he has a brother who's in New York City, and they love it there. We have fun when we go visit and getting the tours, and my niece is just a little connoisseur of everything New York City. But my mother and father-in-law lived in Simi Valley, and my father-in-law's a pilot with my husband, so they're often doing trips together. But when there's traffic, that can be a 3-hour drive, easy. And so there was just this sense of, like, we can always use the help with our kids, and there's just value of all being closer. And so it's kind of a 10-year plan of getting them to move closer. And funny story is that house that I fell in love with, originally it caught my attention to get my in-laws to move in there. They had an added-on garage, so it's like a 2.5-car garage. And it had a little bit more square footage. And we're like, this house is perfect for you. And they just weren't ready yet. So that's the house we ended up moving into. And then fast forward, I think it's 4 years. They bought that house from us, and then we went one street over. And got another dream house.
yes. So
well, you put a lot of work into that one.
Yes. Yeah. So it's been just this neat evolution of having our family be closer, so we're there for each other. They help me out more than we could ever help them, but it allows my father-in-law and my husband to fly together, and it's been good.
It's really
sweet. Love it. I kept fantasizing and hyping it up as though you're going to have instant friends. Because when they lived in Simi Valley, they lived in the same neighborhood for 40 years. Yeah. They had neighbors that they knew and who could, they have a tortoise that they adore, Herschel, and the neighbors would pet sit for them, but they weren't really close. And I said, when you move here, you're going to have instant friends. And they did, and that was just so amazing. Because our neighborhood is so diverse in terms of age and backgrounds and everything else. Yeah. It's really special.
Well, and one of the great things that you do that you've been so kind to us, I mean, into once in a while, is you do like this workout club almost. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Share. I think it's so unique and special what you do.
So back during COVID, I get motivated socially. So I'll go to a gym where someone's going to say hi to me and tell me exactly what to do. So during COVID, that all went away. And so I started videoing and fast forward my workouts. in the garage by myself. And I had a friend who said, can I join you? And so it spiraled from there. So during COVID for 2 years, we had Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 6 a.m.
Oh.
We worked out in the rain, in the cold, in the sunshine. And so that was amazing. In the last 20 years, I've been a teacher at Killybrooke for 16 of them. I took 5 years off during that COVID window. So it's kind of evolved. So now it's at 9 a.m. on Mondays and Fridays.
I didn't know about the 6 a.m.
Yes. So now it's 9 a.m. because I'm not getting up that early anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just evolved into, I'm not a trainer, but I've got some dumbbells and we've got a couple workout benches. And so I just give that disclaimer and don't get hurt. And here's what I recommend doing. And they just show up and have a great time. We usually have about 8 to 10 people. It just depends on the day.
I think it's so good for so many reasons, like the social aspect, like you said, for helping people with their, just keeping their health good. And they love it.
Yes.
Like you guys have a text chain going.
Yes. And it's
so
it's evolved because if you show up and you're like, wait, I have these dumbbells that have been collecting dust under my bed. So it grows without me having to do hardly anything. And it's just so special. We have a seamstress in the group and someone who helps me with my almost failing garden all the time. And just the sense of community and the conversations that happen during those mornings of just creating a time for each other has been really special.
They love you. Yeah, they totally love you. So let's talk a little bit about your background in teaching. How did you get into that over here in Costa Mesa? And was it always Costa Mesa?
So I ended up, my first year of teaching was in Costa Mesa. I student taught in other places, but I ended up at Killybrooke. I kind of got placed at a time where there weren't a lot of teacher positions, and I got placed at Killybrooke knowing very little about it. Most of my experience was in 3rd grade. I started in 2005, and then I resigned at the end of the 2019 school year. Then I took 5 years off, but COVID happened within there. And so I started a pod with a bunch of 2nd grade neighbors, and another neighbor took a kindergarten pod, and we just banded together as a neighborhood to get these kids through. And we just worked with the teachers because they were doing those Zoom calls. And so we set up a little classroom, and we'd monitor and help keep them on track, and had a recess, and I had COVID chickens. And so I was out of the traditional classroom for 5 years, helping with my husband's business and aviation. And I, on a whim, was joking with the principal, and I was like, "Are you hiring?" I was joking. I ended up teaching 6th grade last year. The stars aligned.
Be careful what you wish for.
I know, right? It was a nuts year. It was very busy.
Yeah. So exciting. And I wanted to hear more about your history and your background in leadership.
Yes. So I realized, Killybrooke hasn't always been that neighborhood school that it feels like today. And we had a group of parent leaders back in like 2004, I want to say, where they just felt like it was such a shame to not take advantage of this resource right there. And so they invited the principal at the time to come to their house and just do a Q&A and try to be like, why, convince us to send our kids here because it would work for everybody. Yeah. And I think that really changed the trajectory of the school. And so starting with that kindergarten 2005 group, there was this cohort of really strong parent leaders. And so just being aware of it made me realize just how impactful that parent involvement and that community dynamic is. Teachers can only do so much. You also have to have the parents participating and hyping it up. And so another thing about our neighborhood, which is probably common to most Orange County neighborhoods, is both parents are working.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where I've realized with volunteer work and leadership is do what you can, when you can, where you can. I'm really involved in my daughter's volleyball team right now and not involved at all with my son's baseball team. But I'll give him a Chick-fil-A gift card here or there, and I'll share all the appreciation for our current PTA president because I know just how much work it is.
Yeah.
And it does take that village. And people, when I was PTA president for a number of years, I would have people say, oh, I can't because I work. And so just getting really creative on, okay, well, you work, so do we, but here's some ways that you might be able to help with a flexible schedule. And so really trying to pull people in with where they're at. And a lot of people I found that maybe didn't work the traditional 9-to-5 job. They might have a sick family member or twin babies or whatever their reasons are for why they can't show up in that traditional way. And it's just so important to honor that with what time you set the meetings at and how you make people feel welcome without asking them to give up all their time.
I think obviously you have a very unique perspective because you worked in the schools for so long, so you know exactly how much resources you have to give and what the school district has to give and how much it does help to have the parent participation. And honestly, I didn't realize any of that until now that I have kids in the school. I can see, wow, and I wouldn't even know if I wasn't going in to help a little bit here and there.
Much is involved.
I am like, oh my gosh, I don't know how the crazy.
Because school's not how it was when we were kids.
No.
We're now like, there's school nurse, psychologist, speech, it's everything there. You have counselors. And so the teachers feel that because, you might have a few kids that are on different schedule. It's a lot. And so when parents know just how much our teachers are doing, I hope it quiets the noise a little bit because I think teachers and schools get the blame for all of society's issues when in reality it's like turn the TV off at home, take the iPad, just those basics that us as parents really need to do. So we're sending our kids to school rested and just ready to learn.
Yeah, no, I know. You give some great tips on Instagram. You've been doing that for a long time, just about your viewpoints on school and how parents can help. And
for sure.
I guess it's kind of like the whole like limited mindset in a way. Where we all have our excuses and we can validate them, like, sure, I work, whatever, but what can you do,
right.
So
right.
I think
and sometimes it's a gift card from the company you work at, or sometimes it's honestly just a nice note or an email from a parent is such a game changer because we don't get a lot of parent feedback. When everything's going great, no one says anything. And so I try really hard to just find little things when I'm at Target or I'm out and about to just show that teacher that appreciation. It could even be a Post-it on those Olipop sodas have the apple flavor, so I'll pick those up for my kid's teacher and just say thanks for everything you're doing.
That's sweet.
Just because it's not about the money, it's just about that I see you and thank you so much because you spend more time with my kids on a school day than I do.
I know. That is the crazy part of society.
It is.
Honestly.
It is.
You do all this work to have kids and then you barely see them. So,
I know.
Yeah. Well, you've done a great job in doing all of that. Is there anything else that you want to share with the community about things that you're working on or things that you think need attention that you want to highlight?
I was thinking about that a little bit. So if you love where you're at, continue to hype that up with others because at all the school levels there's options. And it's so interesting having nurtured this group of 6th graders last year because I was their teacher. I've been having them go to middle school and our schools are phenomenal. I don't think they've caught up with the times of demonstrating that excellence and that competence of what they're actually doing. Like I don't need the schools to change as much as I need for them to almost advertise so much that they're doing. My daughter's done STEM competitions at UCI and both have been involved with ASB and volleyball and just all of these opportunities that I never would have known had existed if I wasn't tied in with the community. And also having seen so many of my previous students go through their different drama performances. I've had students that were so quiet and introverted and then a few years later I'd go watch them in a play at the brand new theater and they're doing solos and monologues and playing Gaston in the play and just blown away at the opportunities these kids are given. We have former students from Killybrooke who went to Mesa as brother sister that went to Stanford and played volleyball. We have a current Killybrooke Mesa kid that's at UCLA. I mean, just so many success stories that don't get told. And that's one thing that I wish we could share. It's not all about what college you go to. We have another student who's now doing, I don't know what you would call it, but he does beekeeping.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
And so he came back on senior day when they graduate. They come back to the elementary school that graduation week and they explain where they're headed. And I'm like, that is so amazing. Some going to the military and just hyping up how well we prepare our kids that you wouldn't know unless someone told the story.
Yeah, there probably does need to be more storytelling.
Because when there's a fight or there's a problem or there's some mishap, that gets told on repeat. Yeah. But sharing that good news just in regular news, it just doesn't happen quite as often.
Yeah, I mean, the good news just doesn't sell as
good as the bad news. But that's that's the information parents use when they decide where to send their kid.
Totally. No, you're right. That does need to be hyped up. I think in the long run, I think social media can be used for the positive, and the school has been using it more, which is great. And I think a lot of the parents find their news there, so that's helpful. I think that brings a lot of people into the awareness. But
100%.
Yeah, but I think, look, the school is one of the top rated in the whole district, which is a huge accomplishment. A lot of people don't know where it is, what that neighborhood is. It is a hidden gem.
It is.
And it's very, very charming.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
So we have that so in terms of the neighborhood, we have the tennis club right next door.
Yeah.
And that's really been a focal point of the neighborhood. We've kind of got 3 things that I don't think you would know about until you moved in and you saw all that it had to offer. So you got the school, and then next door is Halecrest. So between my kids doing summer camps there, swim lessons there, we haven't delved into pickleball or tennis yet, but that gets used. But it's just, there's a chili cook-off coming up. But on any given day, you can go to the community pool, and you don't have to call anybody. You know there are going to be people there that your kids are just going to gravitate towards. And we owned a house that had a pool. it was kind of a nightmare because your bathroom is soaking wet by the time anybody leaves, and you have 3 loads of towels to wash. And so I very much appreciate having that community pool to handle all of that. You can leave when you want to without sending people home. And so that's been amazing. And then I mentioned the preschool before. So that Harbor Trinity Church and preschool, a lot of our neighborhood kids go there.
Yeah.
And so you just have these kids that have genuinely grown up together from the time they were 2 all the way to graduating 6th grade.
Yeah, that's really special too, that there would be that right there in the middle of the neighborhood.
And so one piece of advice in terms of educator mom hat right now that I heard a while back was have multiple social groups for your kids. Because if your kid has one best friend and that best friend goes sideways or that best friend moves across the country, that's your whole kid's social circle.
Yeah.
So I've tried really hard to always have 3 social circles going on for my kids. So for one kid, she has volleyball, she has her youth group at church, and I'm blanking on what the other one is, but she also has her peers at school or her neighbors, right?
Yeah.
So always kind of, can you identify 3 different social groups that your kid belongs to? And that's helped. And you're like, it's nice to have a few different networks, which is probably good advice for adults too.
I think it's great advice, and also it will help prepare them should they go away to college and whatnot, just to be ready for that transition and make it a little bit smoother. Yeah, that's awesome advice. See, follow Kristen for all the mom hacks and just general community hacks, and also her workout group and everything, because you're very welcoming. Anybody can really attend anytime, and it's super fun.
It is.
The chatter there is off the hook, and it's very supportive too. The ladies and the people that go are really, really kind.
It's a lot of fun.
It is fun. Well, Kristen, you have been like a light ever since I met you. So welcoming, and like there's a lot that I found out today that I didn't even know about. I knew about your husband in the aviation.
Yes.
I didn't know as much about you and that passion in the background. So do you still do any flying yourself?
I go with him. Flying was something I kind of took on because it was familiar with my parents, which sounds so bizarre. And then he just lives and breathes it. So I married a pilot instead of pursuing it. But I do have fun, and I can hold my own in an aviation conversation. So that's been very valuable as I help with the company. We're hosting a field trip next week where high school comes to our company. And we give them a tour of the airplanes and all of that. So that gets to merge my education background with the business. So that's a lot of fun too.
Is the business over by John Wayne?
Yes, we're based at John Wayne.
All right, Kristen. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome. I appreciate the invitation. So thank you.